Welcome to the 22nd day in the month of May in the year 2023. Thank God it's Monday, and it's the Monday a lot of Nigerians have been waiting for, counting down to. Perhaps we can call it a Dangote Monday. Well, we'll get to that. First of all, let's see what's happening with oil prices. It slipped on Monday as caution around the U.S. debt ceiling talks and concerns about demand recovery in China offset support from lower supplies from Canada and OPEC Plus producers. Brent crude futures fell 48 cents to $75.10 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for July delivery, which is the more actively traded contract, also fell 45 cents to $71.24 a barrel. The June WTI contract, which expires later on today, fell 52 cents to $71.03 a barrel. The resumption of U.S. debt ceiling negotiations, which is supposed to start off today, will remain a key driver for crude and risk sentiment this week. Investors are also concerned about China's recovery, which is faltering after weak economic data reports in the past 2 weeks. Last week, both oil benchmarks gained about 2%, their first weekly gain in 5, after wildfires shot in large amounts of crude supply in Alberta, Canada. The impacts of voluntary production cuts by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, including Russia, OPEC Plus, is also being felt after going into effect this month. That's May. And then we also hear from JP Morgan that total exports of crude and oil products from the group plunged by 1.7 million barrels by May the 16th. They also add that Russian oil exports will likely fall by late this month. And then we come to Nigeria. A leading manufacturer of high-quality portable power stations, Blue T, has donated more than 100 Blue T P-series solar home systems to Yaba College of Technology here in Lagos. The project, Blue T's corporate social responsibility, with the objective of providing solar-powered lighting solutions to students of the college, and tagged Lighting an African Family CSR project. The initiative focuses on improving the lives of underprivileged families by providing them with solar-powered lighting solutions that are both cost-effective and environmentally friendly.
Part of its vision of creating a minimalist portable power station that seamlessly integrates into everyone's life, Blue T has gifted at least 100 P-series solar home systems to Yaba Tech. The solar system enables 6 to 10 hours of lighting, refrigerator, watching 10 hours of television per day. But there is more.
BT is known for what? Their battery system. They don't just use any battery, and these are the advantages of what they have in their solar portable power stations. They have a BMS system, which is the battery management system that helps to protect the battery during usage. There's no fear of what? Overheating, or fear of what? Explosion and anything. And this BMS system helps to what? Monitor and regulate the charging and discharging of the battery to make sure that the battery lasts for as long as what? Provided by the what? Manufacturer, which is Blue T.
This corporate social responsibility by the company features a donation of at least 100 solar systems to Yaba Tech.
The Blue T is having the first launch in Nigeria, and it happens to be in Yaba College of Technology. You agree with me that to give out 100 of these to our students is a plus to our center, it's a plus to Yaba College of Tech, and it's also a plus to these wonderful students that are seated here.
But that's not all, as students are also gifted with 100 Home E40 solar home systems. 3 raffle draw winners are also smiling home with a portable device.
With these, I can actually light up my hostel. I can also take it home and use it in my house, in my comfort zone. I can actually read at any time, notwithstanding the dark, having to cheat the dark, because with light, everything is possible. Thank you so much. You guys are so wonderful.
During examination period, I think this is going to help the student effectively. In the sense that during the night classes, there might not be light. It's going to help them positively and be a blessing, not a distraction.
Despite this donation to Yaba Tech, Blue T says it remains remains committed to providing energy storage solutions for every household, as well as create a clean and independent energy storage for all humans. The Lighting an African Family project is a testament to the commitment to giving back to the community and supporting the Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, congratulations to those students, and well, we want more from Blue Tea, I guess we would say. But now let's go to the major issue of the day, which is every location seems to be, or every eye seems to be at Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos at this time. There you have it. Those are the visuals from that Dangote refinery commissioning, which we can see it's almost on the way. I think maybe just before now, I saw the visuals of some business individuals, stakeholders in the private sector, government officials are there. We learned some president. We do know that Dangote Refinery should be feeding neighboring countries, filling their needs. So we've seen representative or president of neighboring countries who have also been there just waiting for that commissioning to take place. And of course, the man of the hour, Mr. Aliko Dangote, is already there. We saw him earlier in the earlier visuals. This is entertainment going on there, and just maybe waiting for the president. But I'll just tell you a little bit about Dangote. Yeah, so telling you a little bit about this big refinery that everyone is celebrating today. It's located at Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos. It covers a land area approximately 2,635 hectares, and the refinery is the world's largest single train with a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. It has the capacity to refine 650,000 barrels per day. We've already had the NNPCL promising that they're going to give about 300,000 barrels per day. That's about, I think, about 40% or so of what Nigeria needs, and hopefully that should satisfy a lot of the domestic demands when it comes to that. The refinery is powered by 435 megawatt power plant. At full capacity, it can meet 100% of Nigerian requirements of all refined products and also surplus for export. I mean, let's remember that it's not just about petrol. You have the derivatives also, that it can produce lubricants, and all of that should come from Dangote Refinery. That's why a lot of people are very excited about it. Then you have it's designed for 100% Nigerian crude with flexibility to process other crudes. Self-sufficient marine facility with ability for freight optimization. It's the largest single order of 5 single points mooring anywhere in the world. Diesel and gasoline from the refinery will reform to Euro V specification. I mean, there's even the hope that jet fuel could come from here. And so that incident that we had last year where the aviation sector was almost comatose, we shouldn't have it anymore after Dangote starts working. The refinery design complies with World Bank, US EPA, European emission norms, Department of Petroleum Resources. It incorporates state-of-the-art technology and is designed to process a large variety of crudes, including many of the African crudes, some of the Middle Eastern crudes, and US light tight oil. 65 million cubic meters of sand dredged, costing about 300 million euros, using the world's largest dredgers. So you can see this is a big deal for Nigeria. When we look at, apart from, the products that should come from there, the employment that this is supposed to, I mean, I don't think Dangote Refinery will ignore Nigerians and employ, except for the expertise, for the skills, of course. You have a lot of Nigerians employed here. We also hope it to bring a lot of development to that area, the Ibeju-Lekki area, and a whole lot more. So that's why Nigerians are excited today, and that's why we have the who is who in the world of business gathering at Ibeju-Lekki at this time. There you have it from very big business people. This is a live video from there. Yes, you can see the minister there. We can see a known business personality with his wife there. And this is just the tip of the iceberg there from Nigeria and outside Nigeria. They are meeting there, right there, awaiting. The Olu of Warri is there also. We can see him there in that visual. So, I mean, when it has to do with the life of Nigerians, then it concerns everybody. It's everybody's business. And there we can see. So it's slated to start at 10 a.m. Everyone is seated. I believe they're waiting for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. What a way to end his administration, you know, a couple of days to the end. And we see him doing this. But let's talk more about what Nigerians expect from Dangote Refinery as is being commissioned today. Joining us virtually is Mr. Chiwendu Enechi. He's a partner, oil, gas, and power group at Anderson. Mr. Enechi, well, congratulations, I believe, is in order for all of us.
Good morning, Indy. Of course, congratulations are in order. The refinery is huge significance to us as a country. Like you said, it's the largest oil refinery in Africa with the capacity to produce about 650,000 barrels of crude per day. So, of course, the projected economic effect of that refinery is expected to be far-reaching, you know, and significantly impacts the Nigerian economy as well as Africa. So, it's a big day for us, really. It's a day that we've all been looking forward to. And so, hopefully, when the refinery becomes fully operational, we can then begin to see the expected gains. And we're all hoping to see that.
So let's look closer at those gains. What are some of those gains? I know that some Nigerians actually think that with the refinery that the price of petrol will drop, but I think that's not the reality. So, so help us. I know we've been trying to paint the picture. So, you know, we don't have a lot of expectations dashed, you know, when the refinery starts working. But help us to understand what are some of those gains we expect. We do know that the issue of logistics costs for importing petrol should at least reduce, and then the push or the pressure or drive for FX should also reduce.
Yeah, so let's even start with the supposed expectation that the pump price of petrol in Nigeria will reduce. I mean, that's some expectation, but that's not really, I mean, in my view, that's not really the case. That might not be the case, really. When the refinery becomes operational. Don't forget that crude oil continues to be the major feedstock of every refinery. And I mean, 70% of your operational costs will always come from crude as feedstock. So, and crude is priced at international market. However, the expectation is that once we start that local refinery, once the refinery becomes fully operational, what it gives you really is the security of supply. My understanding is that when you place an order for refined products, you know, to come from Europe, for instance, it takes about 14 days to get them from Europe into the country. So what then happens is that any glitch with weather, in a war situation or something, you know, anything that happens, of course, that delivery date then becomes or could be extended, which leads to other issues. But once we have the refinery here, the product becomes very close to you. And then the issue of energy security becomes much more assured. So in terms of the pump price, I don't really see much reduction. If you listen to the NMPC group CEO some months back when he talked about that the cost of logistics, what he explained was that refining of crude into PMS in Nigeria basically reduced that logistic cost around petrol by about 17 naira per liter, which was significant when you look at the fact that NMPC supplies over 60 million liters of petrol daily, you know, for local consumption. At 17 naira per liter, you know, reduction in logistic costs, that would translate to about maybe 1 billion naira savings daily. So on an annual basis, the country could be saving over 367 billion naira when the refinery becomes operational. So we might see maybe a slight reduction, but not something so significant in terms of the pump price. But obviously, the logistic costs will be impacted, which is helpful. Now, when we look at the impact on FX, for instance, of course, the facility is set to. I mean, the expectation is that number one, need to address that perennial PMS, supply issues like scarcity, adulteration, and of course, the never-ending subsidy debacle. Aviation fuel and diesel fuel, driving that domestic commerce, have also struggled in recent times. They've struggled to, secure sustainable, sufficient, and economically valuable supplies since the beginning of last year. When you were talking, you mentioned what happened in the aviation industry last year. If you remember last year, that industry nearly collapsed, due to an unplanned and unforeseen spike in price of jet fuel, and of course the scarcity as well. So, and we also experienced that same issue with diesel last year, and that threw several businesses and small businesses, threw them out of business. And so those things are behind the intimidating operation cost of services like hotels, the banks. Some of those banks even started, they changed their working hours just to manage the issue. So the refinery is expected to increase supply of refined petroleum products, and of course help us to mitigate, fuel scarcity, which will of course, improve the country's energy sector and contribute to economic growth. In terms of foreign exchange, people have said that the main beneficiary are the fiscal and the monetary authorities in terms of their policy formulation and implementation, to improve foreign trade balance and defending the value of the naira. When you look at the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics numbers for Q4 2022, for instance, when you look at the value of other oil products that were imported into the country, for that period, it stood at about 1.877 billion naira, which was about 35% of the total imports. For me, that's huge. If you look at that number as a whole, it puts a lot of pressure on the CBN's mandate of defending the naira if we're having to import that much of other oil products. So when this refinery comes on stream, the expectation is that there will be a reduction in the import of this product. Of course, that will then also have some little, impact on the balance of payments, which will stimulate economic growth.
Yeah,
but mind you,
yeah. Go ahead.
Mind you, we don't expect the gate price of product from the refinery to be priced in local currency.
Exactly,
so
that's what I wanted to say. I guess it's very important to also bring that up because, even the 300,000 barrels of oil which the NNPCL is selling to Dangote, I believe it's still priced in dollars. So everything around...
That would be my expectations, yeah. So that would be my expectation, really, except if they have some form of arrangement to sell crude in naira, which I don't know. I don't foresee that. So the refinery gate price will still be will not be denominated in naira. But there is substantial foreign exchange savings that could translate into some massive reduction in the pressure on the CBN to defend the naira. If you look at the landing cost, for instance, if you take a look at the foreign exchange component of that landing cost, you have things like that's before you do over and under recovery, which is the subsidy thing. You have things like freight charges, traders margin of maybe $10 for every 30,000 metric ton, ship-to-ship charges, receipt losses, MPA, demurrage charges, after 10 days, and then of course the MPA handling cost. These are all priced in forex, and then of course you talk about the cost of the stock financing for imported product, and so many other things. Some people have looked at it to say, look, these components actually comprise about 27% of the total pump price of any petroleum product. They have impact. So when you put this into financial terms, you realize the amount of money that would have been brought to the foreign exchange market to buy forex, settle, this cost. Obviously that then has impact on the foreign exchange market. So the refinery is said to, or is expected to reduce the pressure on foreign exchange demand in avoidable cost. But again, that area is a free trade zone, and so products that will be taken out of that area will still, have some be treated like, imported to the country. But I don't expect the cost to be as much as what you have when you bring in product from Europe and all that. So obviously that will have some reduction in the cost of.
But I guess that will also depend on how the Nigerian government treats Dangote. For instance, are they giving them some concession? Because Dangote is also expected to pay taxes. You know, so do we have such arrangement that will maybe make it softer for Dangote so it also trickles down to the consumers? I know it's business. I mean, Dangote Refinery is business. They're not a charitable.
Of course, I mean, the company is set up to, to make profits. And don't forget that Nigeria is not the only market that is looking to supply. I mean, for us, what it does for us is that we have a ready market for our crude. Just like you pointed out at the beginning, that the MPC Limited has promised to supply 300,000 barrels, to the refinery. So the expectation is for them to also source the rest from other places. So what that does for us locally is that producers locally then have ready-made market for their product, for the crude. In terms of any concession, I'm not aware of any that the government has granted them, really, because look, I'm not aware that Dangote will be getting the crude at any reduced cost or at any subsidized cost. So I don't expect Dangote to also sell product to Nigeria at a subsidized cost. Yeah, NNPC has a stake in the refinery, about 20% stake, but I don't think that stake will mandate the company to run their business any differently. Because at the end of the day, NNPC also stands to make some profit from whatever gains that the refinery realize at the end of the day. So it will run like every other business. I think for us, like I did mention, is the fact that those issues around fuel scarcity and adulteration of product and things like that may no longer be the case. And Nigerians will probably begin to pay the actual cost of petrol. But what that does is help to galvanize the sector, and all the issues that we've had from things like adulteration and fuel scarcity will no longer be the case. And the economy will actually, benefit in the long run.
Yeah, obviously. And of course, there's also the expectation of employment, taxes.
Oh, yes.
As we speak, Dangote, we have Dangote Refinery, Dangote Cement. I mean, Dangote is one of the top taxpayers in the country. So this should actually add to government revenue and maybe reduce our borrowing, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, you did talk about the employment. I mean, my understanding is that we probably employ over 130,000 Nigerians, or maybe not totally Nigerian, but obviously it will help to address some of the unemployment issues that we have. And of course, as the refinery then continues, becomes fully operational, there's also the opportunity to train Nigerians as well in that refinery business. I mean, we might end up seeing other smaller refineries. We already have some other smaller refineries in country, but we may see some level of impact on how that then impact other businesses or other companies to go into that after some Nigerians would have been trained on how the refinery business works. So of course the employment will come from there as well.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chinwendu Enechi, partner, Oil, Gas and Power Group with Anderson. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now, refinery is a big deal today, is a major thing, but there are other businesses. One of that is a car swap by GAC Motor, so GAC Motor. If you had one, then you can swap for a new one, and let's see how it works.
years after rocking her old GS4, Nollywood actress and entertainer Bisola Ayola is here at the head office of the GAC Motors, Victoria Island, for a futuristic upgrade to the all-new GS4 SUV. The upgrade of Miss Ayola's vehicle signals the official launch of the car swap program by GAC Motors to set new standards for its Nigerian users.
After our first 6 years run, we have now come to an age where we believe people should start enjoying the second-hand value of GAC. So this project would usher in a trading platform where if you have an old GAC car, you can drive it into our showroom anywhere across the nation, and you can drive home immediately on same day with a brand new GAC car that is of today's technology.
Ms. Ayola, who has already tested the new GS4, shares the perks of owning a GAC vehicle.
When the new GS4 was launched, I was opportuned to ride in her. Hey! Sleek, smooth. We on engine, we did not know the engine was on. It was just like AC, just smooth. One of the features that I really liked most about it was the GPS. Seeing that I could use the GPS without being connected to the internet. It's connected to the satellite, so you cannot be stranded.
From the head office, they all moved to the G-Style showroom for the official handing over of the all-new GS4 SUV to Miss Ayola.
This is good stuff. I love it. Thank you.
GAC Moto prides itself in providing customers and car owners a unique driving experience. And with a goal to ensure every household has a GAC vehicle, they are championing the process of the second-hand value of GAC for users, encouraging Nigerians to embrace the new era of driving.
A new era of driving indeed. Well, inflation is still high, is at 22.22%, in spite of the fact that Nigeria's central bank has increased the interest rate 6 times. The interest rate was initially set at 11.5% between 2021 and March 2022. It was raised to 13% from 11%. As we speak, we're talking of interest rates at 16.5%. And in spite of this, we still see inflation surging. For April, we saw it. So now let's have Mr. Ayodije joining us to tell us why he thinks inflation is still surging in spite of the interest rate hike. Mr. Ayodije, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Yeah, good morning, and it's great to be here.
Good to have you. So, I mean, in other countries, like even in the United States, we see the Federal Reserve hiking rates, and then we see like response in inflation. At least that's what we had the last time. But in Nigeria, it seems there's no connect between interest rate hiking and inflation numbers.
Okay, thank you. Before you would expect to see the effects, we need to first understand what the main reason for our own inflation. For the developed climes, mostly what you would see is more of demand pull. They have too much money in circulation due to a lot of the quantitative easing. And as a result, they felt to see how they can increase, contract or take out money in the system so that it will reduce demand. But for us in Nigeria, it still boils down to cost push, which means that more of it is more tilted towards structural issues, high production cost, and insecurity is also affecting demand. So the peculiarity of our inflation rate in Nigeria, it's totally different from what we see in developed climes. And that's why, as a result, that despite increasing MPR 6 times, we've not really seen that impact on reducing inflation rates. For instance, when you look at the cost of moving food items from the north to Lagos, is significantly high. We are paying for those inefficiencies, and it impacting on prices. We also should not forget the impact of FX, how it fits in, looking at where most businesses get their FX from, which is the parallel market. That has also impacted. Imported inflation, when you look at it, forms, I think, about 30% of total basket. So it's really more cost push than demand pull that we have in developed climes. That's why we are seeing that impact. But then the more they increase the interest rate on their mortgages goes up, interest rate on their fixed income goes up, and as a result, you see a bit of alignment that people will prefer to save rather than spend.
So what should Nigeria be doing if we really want to tame inflation?
Okay, thank you. I think if we're able to, I mentioned some of the causes. One, we need to first tame insecurity. So we have less production of food in the food producing areas because of insecurity. So if we're able to take care of that, that will increase production, and it's also a demand and supply. So if supply increases, then we will see that the prices will fall. Secondly, we need more stability in FX. That's, we can say, maybe long term, because when you look at all our channels or sources of FX have dwindled significantly. We are not getting FPI, that's foreign portfolio investors, foreign direct investments, oil proceeds, euro bonds have all dried up. So the CBN trying to create stability is really going to be a very tough one. So if we need to be able to produce more for us and export more for us to create that stability, that may be more long term. But if we also fix our infrastructure system, so moving goods from Kano or from the up north to the east or to the west, if we can be done via train rather, then that would also reduce the cost. The cost of using trailers or trucks to move them can really be very high, and a lot of the inefficiencies that you have to pay, different tolls that you have to pay on the road. So that is part of what is compounding our issues. So if we don't take care of those structural issues, transportation, diesel prices that continue to also go up at that expense, then it will continue to see that impact on prices.
So what happens if the CBN or the MPC continues to hike rates, and yet we see inflation surging? Is that what they call stagflation, or what's the picture? Because it doesn't look like CBN are ready to stop that, as long as, you know, even countries like the US keep on hiking rates.
Yeah, so I think that if the CBN or the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, keeps raising the rates without the complementary factor or support from the fiscal authorities, then we're going to see more negative impact, because you see, for most businesses in Nigeria, when they take loans, one thing that you see is that it is floating based. For those that take fixed loan, maybe the blue chip companies that borrowed borrowed using bonds, they may not be impacted. But when you look at SME, account for a major part of businesses in the country. So that would impact on their cost of finance, which will also impact on cost of production. We also see that there are other factors that are impacting on fixed income yields. So you would observe that despite that increase from like an average of about that 12% to almost 18% now, we've not seen that corresponding increase in the fixed income rate, because liquidity also play a major role. The tenor of those instruments play a major role in determining the yields on this item. So I believe that the MPC will get to a point that they will need to allow the fiscal authority to come in and around improving on ease of doing business, which is working on the structural issues to complement the effort. Because what the CBN is focused on is trying to see that if they're able to increase interest rates, yes, interest rates on savings have been going up. it will reduce people from spending because they want to save. Secondly, it also reduces the pressure on exchange rate because the more you try to also increase the rate, the less maybe speculation on the exchange rate, which creates a bit of stability. But I don't think the increase in the MPR is the silver bullet for solving this problem.
Okay, so now we have a new administration coming in, and you did talk about the issue of infrastructure. You talked about the train, which we know, even though there's been attention given to it in recent times, it doesn't just happen. There's still processes already. A lot of the debts, China loans and all of that, are connected to infrastructure. And we're already using about 90% or more to service debts, unfortunately. So when we look at this tight corner that it seems the economy is at, it's not simple. You can't just raise rates and expect that inflation will be tamed. We need to deal with infrastructure. We need to align the fiscal and monetary policy. It's a lot of work, obviously, awaiting the president-elect, who is supposed to be sworn in a couple of days. But where can they start from in reality?
Okay, thanks. I think the first step is trying to review the PPP arrangements. They need to be able to come up with or rejig that policy that will create a bit of comfort for the private sector. You rightly mentioned the government, in terms of revenue, is challenged, and there's no need trying to be raising bond to finance this. They need to try and partner with private investors. Sometimes we have that perception that, things may look more expensive, but we are paying for all these inefficiencies. So if the private sector can build the rail within the next 2 years across all the nations, and we have to pay high toll so that they can recoup it, it will still be lower than using trucks from the north to the east. Because there are even a lot of invisible tolls.
Mr. Ibo, but I mean, when you talk of PPP, we have the credit tax scheme. We have a lot of PPP programs already in existence. So what's happening to those ones?
Yeah, so thankfully that you mentioned the credit tax system, which we can see that impact. The Apapa to Ojota Road by Dangote, there are a lot going on, but we now need to see how we want to encourage more of the private sector taking it. Getting those approvals to sometimes may not be as straightforward as we think. So if government, the private sector are willing to support this, because they also suffer it at the end. If we can ease businesses, if roads can be better, then it will also reduce even manpower being spent on the road. So I feel the focus is now implementing those policies that would create more level playing ground for private sector. Government, we can see Lagos, Ibadan, almost 10 years still under construction. If it has been, if it was well handed over to the private sector, but those that have the capacity to build it, in less than 2 years, that road can be done, and it will save a lot of time. So I believe that there's more collaboration. There needs to be more collaboration with the private sector. We need to respect contracts, which will provide confidence for people to bring their money, and they see how they can also recoup it. And for also Nigerians, because of that perception, because the stakeholders' engagement are also very key, that some of these things should be provided by the government, and as a result, they don't need to pay for them. Indirectly, we suffer those inefficiencies, we pay for them. Some of the invisible tolls that we see on the road that you cannot account for, we definitely pay for all those things. So if we're able to get private sector come fix some of this program, infra code that has been set up, we're believing that would also play a major role in easing infrastructure in this new administration.
So what do you see the MPC doing on Wednesday? Their meeting begins tomorrow, ends on Wednesday. What do you see them doing? You see them holding, hiking?
My bet is that they would hike by about 0.5%, so from 18% to 18.5%, given the stance of the CBN on inflation.
And of course, that's higher operational costs for those SMEs you talked about earlier. But anyway, we'll see what they'll do on Wednesday, and then we'll discuss the expected impact. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodipo, for your time this morning.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, now let's move to the market and see if Dangote Refinery has done anything to the market, or it's too soon. Good morning. Today is Dangote. Good morning. Today is Dangote Day.
Yes.
So, I mean, Dangote has to be in all our conversations.
Of course, definitely.
So we need to see what Dangote has done to the market.
Oh, yeah, we'll see. But I don't think it's done anything yet, but we are hoping and expecting and the analysts will give us an insight as to if we will see any improvement in terms of our FX, which is, right on the screen.
Don't worry, be hopeful, be hopeful.
So we're just going to kick off with the market, the forex market, which we saw a slight increase, positive movement in that segment last week. The FX reserves rose by a little above $8 million to $35.2 billion. And that's as at May the 17th. Forex market trading, however, was mostly negative at the FMDQ exchange. We saw total turnover of transactions at the FX, spot, forwards, futures, and derivatives forwards futures market dropping by 3.65% to about $1.1 billion. That's still a good one, at least, but that's a slight drop from what we had last week, in the previous week, rather. Now, further breakdown, we see that the FX spot was also down 17.72%. That's a huge drop for the FX market. We're still looking at transactions. The Naira segment, we see the Naira devaluing further 0.34%. That's losing about 1 Naira 56 kobo to close at 464 Naira 90 kobo to a dollar against 463 Naira 34 kobo to a dollar at the NAFEX window. Now, the bond market was mixed. We saw a bit of bearish movement in the bonds and treasury bill space. That's yields now rising in that space. But we're going to bring in Odinaka Line. Also, Nwonkwo is a fixed income dealer at Access Bank to give us some insight as to what's going on there. Good morning, Odinaka. It's good to have you on the program again.
Good morning, Will. Nice to have you.
And then, we're just going to kick off with, it's Dangote's day, it's the commissioning, it's the launch of the 650,000 barrels per day capacity refinery, the largest in Africa. We've seen that probably, in some parts of the world. What do you think are expectations? Because a lot of people are gearing up for this, waiting to see what's going to happen. Is this going to impact market, lower cost? But we're interested in seeing, would this reduce pressure in the FX market for FX? Would it reduce pressure in that space?
So first, I'll say congratulations to Nigeria and to Dangote. So what people are looking at for Dangote Refinery, that's about a 650,000 barrels per day capacity. So a lot of people are looking at the demand side. So obviously, you're going to see less of import, so it should meet the local demand. But there's always a trade-off. So when you look at that agreement, MPC has about 20% stake, and they are offering about 300 barrels per day of crude to Dangote. So there's a bit of trade-off in terms of FX receipts and also the import. So I don't see much of a difference in terms of how it will impact the current FX because of this trade-off. But in terms of efficiency, local efficiency or tracking of local consumption, so yes, because it's private sector driven and led. So I believe we're going to see more transparency in that regard.
So we look forward to that, Odinaka. But we're just going to look at market expectations and see what's happening in the market. How did that fare last week? But quickly, an outlook for this week.
Okay, last week for the fixed income, we had a bond auction, which was on Monday last week, where the DMO borrowed about 368 billion, and also the total subscription was about 478. So we saw yields increase across the three securities, with the exception of the longest tenor majority, which was the 2050. The 2028, which was the shortest tenured one, closed at 14.1. But going down the way, we saw a bit of bullish sentiment rally on that paper. So currently it's trading around the 13.80. So this also happened, a bit of big sentiment in the treasury bill space, where we saw both buys and and sell-offs on, I think by midweek, a bit of sell-offs, especially on the shorter end. Going into this week, we just had the news about the approval for FAC, which is about 655. So that's increased the liquidity, so we expect more bullish sentiment. Also, there's an NTB auction on Wednesday. 180 billion is maturing on Thursday, so we expect that to be refinanced. There's also a normal maturity on Friday, about 186 billion, which will contribute to liquidity. And also on the FX space, there's a retail auction coming in on Friday. So it's a full-packed activity this week. And also we expect the MPC to meet tomorrow and next. So that's what we are looking at this week in the market.
Thank you so much. Expectations for the market has been said, and analysts said we're expecting a rate hike of about 50 basis points. Well, we'll look out for what the CBN MPC will decide on. Thank you so much, Odinaka Linus Umukoko, fixed income dealer, Access Bank, for your insights. So looking at the all-share index for the equities market, we've seen that last week it closed 0.05% down. That was dragged down by Airtel Africa, the big telco, the big guy in the market. 52,187.93 points. That's where the index is at right now. The market cap is still at the 28 trillion naira mark. Activity levels were also weak. We saw volume and value traded last week declining by 16.2% and 8.4% week on week. You can see to settle at 3.02 billion units, valued at 33.62 billion naira, and all transacted in 29,505 deals. FTN cocoa processors, we saw emerge top gainer. If we just switch to the top gainers chart, we saw for the week the stock price appreciated by about 44% last week to close at 32. It grew to 44 kobo last week, opened at 32 kobo. I mean, that's what we saw at the all-share, for the FTN cocoa processors. We also see the NASD market very quickly to see what they closed at last week as well, down massively by 3.21% to close at 715.9 points, now below the 1 trillion naira mark, back to 990 billion. It's not looking good for the NASD market.
Yeah,
lots of sell-offs going up there, and we're wondering what's driving
even the equities too.
Yeah, but it's a little bit mild compared to what we saw the NASD market, the unlisted equities.
More than 3%
more than
down.
3% down.
That's a whole lot unlisted. But thank you so much, Will. We'll see at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. Well, let's head to London now, where Juliana joins us. And Juliana, good morning. Well, I have to tell you, all through the weekend, this story about, I know we talked about it last week a little bit, about the UK immigration law and how Nigerians will not be allowed to bring their family members and things like that. But I thought, well, I do have eyes and ears in London, so Juliana would be able to give me the real position. That's an update on the law. Has it been done? What's the position now?
Good morning, Innie. Like you, I also received lots of information, lots of speculation and rumour over the weekend about these proposed changes to immigration law. Can you hear me, Innie?
Yes, I can hear you, Juliana.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So yes, I did receive lots of information over the weekend about the proposed changes to the immigration law, which hasn't been done. So anything that anybody is reading at the moment is pure speculation and rumour. But as we've known from this Conservative government, they are likely and prone to leaking information to the press before it comes law. So we're not expecting an official announcement till at least tomorrow or Wednesday. But for those who want to catch up with this story, this is, of course, about net migration. We're expecting Home Office figures to be released on Thursday, showing that net migration has reached record-breaking numbers in 2022 to above 1 million. Now, that may not be a shocking number to people living outside of these isles, but if you are living in the UK and you understand the Conservative government, you know that they have made it crystal clear that reducing immigration is one of their top policies. In fact, if we go back to the new year and we remember Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister's 5 pledges, the first one was to bring down migration. That's just how important it is to this government, and they've made it crystal clear that they're not going to scoot around it. How does this affect Nigerians? Well, unfortunately for Nigerians who have been coming into the UK studying, the vast majority of them have been bringing in their dependents. Now, if you look at the #1 foreign student country, it's China. I believe, according to the latest data, about 140,000 Chinese came to the UK to study last year. They brought in 400 dependents. If you look at Nigeria, about 34,000 Nigerians came to study in the UK. They brought in with them 34,000 dependents, and it's these dependents that has become a critical issue for Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, who, by the way, has her own issues at the moment. We don't know if she's going to survive the rest of the week, but that's a news story. But in terms of how this affects the UK economy and Britain, they believe that these foreign dependents are becoming an issue. Now, again, I don't want to concern people or scare them, because the legislation isn't out. This is all about leaked information and speculation that's got to the press. But it isn't going to be clear-cut. Apparently, if there is going to be a ban on some nations bringing in foreign dependents, this is going to be a huge row in government, because the Treasury, quite rightly, understand that foreign students contribute significant amounts to the UK economy, in fact, billions. They're also helping to bring inflation down, because most foreign students who work are not asking for high wages, which is bringing inflation down in this country. But again, I don't want to concern people. Let's wait for the inflation data to come out. It also apparently isn't going to affect people who come here to study a PhD. So if you're coming to study a PhD, you can bring your foreign dependents. It's those who are studying for master's degrees. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the legislation announces.
Yeah, we'll wait and see, Juliana. But let's look at the week and see expectations for the week.
Unfortunately, I've lost you, Innie. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, Juliana. Can you hear me now?
I'm just about hearing you.
Okay. Expectations for the week?
Expectations for the week. I did mention that Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, is in trouble because of a speeding ticket that she received, and apparently asked her colleagues in the Home Office or in the civil service to help get that deleted. Could Rishi Sunak be losing another minister following Dominic Raab's ousting? That's possible. But in terms of the business news, I think the big one has got to be inflation. Inflation currently at 10.1%, stubborn inflation not yet at single digits, although economists actually believe it could have dropped 8.5% in April. We'll be getting that data on Wednesday, and of course that's going to have ripple effects across the entire British economy.
Of course, Juliana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Ladi isn't here, but let's just see what the numbers are looking like in the crypto space. We'll start with the Fear Greed Index. We see that it's neutral at 49. Some people have said some things. I was reading a couple of things about what's going on in the crypto space, and somebody was asking if Bitcoin is becoming boring, or if the crypto market is becoming boring. Wow, I don't know about that. I was just reading it when the show was that the crypto market has become boring, with Bitcoin, which is the biggest digital asset, settling in the tightest. And we do know that there's also the issue of that US debt ceiling going on. Talks should resume today. I don't know if we can say we know what direction it will end, but that's a major driver of the crypto market. But in spite of that, we see the market is neutral, neither here nor there. But let's look at the price of Bitcoin. A couple of hours ago, this is about, I think, 7:30 a.m. we took these numbers. Bitcoin at 26, down more than 1%. Ethereum also down, a bullish, a bearish market at this time. BNB also down. These are the top guys down. Cardano also down almost 1%. XRP almost 1.5%. I guess everyone is waiting for that conversation around the US debt ceiling and see if they will shift that ceiling or if there'll be a default. I don't know if the US can default. But let's look at other numbers from the crypto space. Okay, there. So the top gainers, TRX, and the top gainers are just single digits, nothing very exciting. No wonder some people think perhaps the crypto market is becoming boring. CRP and Malta and all of that, but that's it. Ladi should be able to answer some of those questions by tomorrow, God willing. But this is where we draw the curtains on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Morning. It's Dangote Day. You're going to have a whole lot of that here on Channels Television as well as tomorrow. But 1:30, we'll be back. Willie Bong will be here to give you an update from the world of business, and then there'll be stock market report. But I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, a good Dangote day.